All right. For those of you that have low vision, we have a high contrast PowerPoint that we'll be sharing in the window, and we're going to go through all of this together. I'm going to share my screen, and we'll get started. All right.
Okay.
Am I up, Caitlin? Are we good?
Yes, it looks good. Looks good. Are you all good on your end?
I'm good on my end.
Okay, great. All right, everybody. So we are talking about aging in place today. Home modifications for aging adults and vision loss.
Okay, see, this is where I have a technology problem here. Okay, here we
There
go.
we
So what is
Okay.
aging in place, Caitlin?
So yeah, what is this phrase? We hear it all the time. What does it mean? So aging in place, the way the CDC actually defines it, is the ability to live in one's home and community safely, independently, and comfortably, regardless of age, income, or ability level. So when you hear about aging in place, you kind of think about, do I need to knock down my house and make it a single level home? Do I need to put an elevator in? That's kind of what we think about when we think about aging in place. And today we'll talk about it, how it relates to aging, but not just aging, but how it relates to vision loss as well. So what does aging in place usually involve? It can look like home modifications. So like I said, could be you're looking to build a home that you can grow old in, doing new construction, or you can do some kind of simple home modifications like lighting or providing contrast. You can also modify the tasks that you're doing. How can you do those tasks differently in your home so that you can stay safe and independent? So that could be, maybe you switch to using a microwave or an Instant Pot instead of using the stove. Now, we can also use smart technology for environmental control. So if you have Alexa or some other, gosh, I don't know, Siri probably, that can be used for controlling the lighting or controlling switches, being able to tell the time and the weather. And then lastly, I wanted to mention for aging in place, we also want to consider what is appropriate assistance. What kind of tasks are you willing to hand off to someone else so that you can still focus on the things that are meaningful to you? So could you have someone else do grocery delivery or go grocery shopping for you if you can't drive anymore? Housekeeping, those kinds of things. Now, if those are meaningful to you, then you can find a way to do those things. And we'll talk about some modifications and tasks and an environment that will allow you to keep doing those things. And why is aging in place so important? Why do we want to talk about it? So a AARP survey that I found from 2021 found that 77% of adults 50 and older want to remain in their own homes for the long term. So it's a very popular idea. A third of the survey participants said they would need to modify their current residence so that they or a loved one could continue to live there if they had physical limitations. So another reason that we're looking into how to modify the home. And another reason to make your home safe and accessible to you as you age is more than 1 in 4 adults aged over 65 experience a fall each year. And most falls among older adults are the result of an interaction of fall risk factors combined. So impaired mobility, medication side effects, impaired vision, improper footwear, and environmental hazards. So tripping hazards, basically. And we're really going to focus on that impaired vision and environmental hazards. So first we will talk about what are typical age-related changes related to vision, and then we'll go into other visual impairments that are associated with age but are not typical to the aging process.
All right, so let's talk for a moment about what actually happens in the aging process. And aging is a very, very normal thing, right? We all go through it, but it tends to be something that we build up a sort of not generally positive conception of. Like, it's something that we don't necessarily look forward to. which is too bad because ultimately it's a really beautiful thing. But there are some things that we do need to be aware of that happen to our bodies. And one of those things is you end up with a lot of diminished muscle loss, which leads to diminished strength as well. It's called cachexia, which is it's muscle wasting syndrome, right? And this happens because of the energy reserves in our body. So as we get older, it takes more energy to do certain things, and we're not necessarily always getting the amount of energy that our systems need to function with the strength that we may have been used to when we were younger. This also relates to flexibility, endurance, all operations related to mobility. So essentially, your ability to move around, to navigate your surroundings, and manage daily tasks on a regular basis can be a little bit more challenging, but we have solutions for those. So it's not the end of the world. Um, this can also relate to balance. I know that a lot of homes and places here in California are one story, which makes California a really great place to grow old. Where I come from on the other side of the country, there are a lot of stairs, and of course we do have stairs out here. So that can be something to consider and figure out. Okay, how can we make stairs a little bit more navigable? It also relates to changes in how you move, right? So your gait when you're walking. So you have to consider being careful of things like tripping hazards, rugs, where you place things, and that can relate to memory, right? Do I remember that I put this thing in a place that I could potentially trip over it, or can I remember? Where my keys are. That's a really big one that I get. I misplace my keys all the time. It's a very common thing. And it is true that even as our bodies start to grow older, our brain is too. Now, I have met people well over 100 even whose cognitive functioning is just as sharp as when they were kids. My grandmother, I remember, could recite the poem that a kid next to her had to memorize in kindergarten when she was 100. So, there are these inspirational stories, and it does not mean that as you get older, your brain is going to decline and your memory is going to go. But as you get older, it is something that can happen, and it is something to pay attention to and be aware of. So memory exercises can be really good for that. I actually have a class coming up in the upcoming semester that specifically relates to exercises that can improve memory. Something to think about. With cognitive function, you also want to think about the actual skills that you use your brain for to execute certain functions on a day-to-day basis. So maybe that's cooking, maybe it's cleaning, maybe it's just figuring out what to wear that day, right? All of these things, like all of our physiological processes, are stemming first from our brain. So our cognitive function is really having an effect on our whole lives, right? And that's the basis behind independent living, is really figuring out how can I pay more attention to my environment, and how can I make my environment more conducive to growing older, which is exactly what we're going to be talking about. So Caitlin, what happens with our senses as we're growing older?
Right. So,
Physiologically, like I know that vision is impacted, of course. So maybe you can talk a little bit about that. But I know some of our other senses fall into play too.
right, right. Well, mainly with vision, as you age, your in normal aging process, the lens in your eye becomes more cloudy and opaque and less flexible, which makes it harder to accommodate at near. So that reading is affected. Any of those near activities are just naturally affected as you age. Um, this means, we need that increased need for light. Visual acuity can just naturally decrease too while you're getting older. Adapting to light and dark, so stepping outside on a really bright day or vice versa, going back inside. I always use the movie theater example. If anybody goes to the movie theater anymore, I don't know, but stepping outside after you've been in that dark theater can be really shocking, and it just takes longer for your eyes to adapt to that change in brightness as you get older. Something else that can also happen with age is you can become more sensitive to glare, and that has to do with the lens in your eye becoming more opaque. People notice this glare sensitivity usually while you're hopefully a passenger if you're having low vision, but in the car, you'll see kind of this uncomfortable star bright thing from the headlights, oncoming headlights. Another thing that happens just naturally as we age is your contrast sensitivity is declining. So your ability for your eyes to detect changes in contrast that are close together, colors that are close together, versus stark black on white. And that's a real issue for mobility, being able to see your depth perception. So being able to tell where each stair is beginning and ending has to do with your contrast sensitivity. Now, hearing, we all probably have experienced this too. Your hearing can decline as we get older. Your sense of touch can also be diminished as we age. You might have that diminished sensation in your fingers, less sensitive to temperature. So we always try to be careful with using hot water. You want to make sure that you're controlling the amount that you're using so that you don't burn yourself without knowing it. And then your sense of taste also declines. I was actually out to dinner the other night with my boyfriend and his parents. And they're not that old. I won't tell them this story, but I ordered the exact same meal as my boyfriend's dad, and I was like, yeah, this is good, I like it. And he's like, this is so bland, this is bland. And that was pretty much our differences in age. You'll notice that as you age, you're like, I need more salt, I'm really not tasting this. It's just something to be aware of.
Another quick note, if I might add something, Caitlin. We have these amazing sensory awareness classes here at Braille, and a lot of what those focus on is exercises that you can do throughout the day to practice those senses. And one of the misconceptions with senses is that that you have one that's dominant, that you have one that you rely on more than others. Like you'll hear people say, I'm a visual learner, I'm an auditory learner, I'm a hands-on type of learner, right? And it gives people the idea that their bodies are only programmed to work that way. And the truth is that all of our senses have an equal opportunity and ability to adapt and to grow. And it has to do primarily with how much we use it. Right? The more we focus on our hearing, or the more we focus on our sense of touch, right? I mean, with the caveat that there are certain physiological problems that could get in the way of that. As a general rule, the more you use your senses, the more your brain is plastic, right? It's able to rewire itself to learn new activities, right? And people say that that's harder, when you get older, and to some extent, it certainly can be, but as well, it is also true that when you focus on those senses, there is a certain amount of flexibility and adaptability insofar as when you focus on those senses and use them more, they do have the potential to be of more use to you. They do have the potential to be sharpened, I guess I could say. Yeah.
Right.
Hold on, I'm having a little technical problem here. Oh, there we go. So what are some of the visual impairments that are associated with age, Caitlin? What can happen to our vision?
So these are actual, visual impairments that are not typical to the aging process. So these are separate from that, but they are typically associated with age. So we have our age-related macular degeneration, and that's probably the most common one that we see here at the Braille Institute. And what happens with that visual impairment is that your central vision is affected. Central vision, your fine detail and color vision. So it makes activities like reading, writing really difficult to do. We also see a lot of individuals with diabetic retinopathy. This can impact your peripheral vision, eventually can impede on your central vision. So things that are difficult with this impairment is mobility. We usually look at mobility, and making sure you're safe that way. Another thing that comes along with diabetic retinopathy is the potential for that impaired sense of touch. So you can have that diabetic retinopathy on your fingers or hands and feet. So we would keep that in mind. Another thing that have cataracts. Cataracts are common as we age, like that lens becoming less flexible, becoming more opaque. That can be corrected with surgery. And then glaucoma. And glaucoma impacts your peripheral vision. So another thing we like to look at is safe mobility, increased lighting in your home. When we talk about some modifications, those are the things that we are focusing on most. Go ahead.
All right. So a lot of these problems that can happen with our vision can affect a lot of the daily tasks that we deal with on a regular basis. Reading and writing, of course. Other things like cooking, right? Measuring and pouring, cutting up vegetables, things like that. A lot harder to see those. Driving, of course. Taking care of yourself, right? Brushing your teeth, showering, all of these different things can present potential problems. Also, other things like shopping. That's a really big one that I get from students a lot. Is how do I find things on shelves? And we'll talk about some solutions to that in a moment. Some of the hobbies that you may be used to. I have a lot of students that do a lot of gardening, or some that used to do a lot of fishing, or I have one student that used to play a lot of chess. It can also affect, because of your hobbies, especially how you socialize with other people, meeting at restaurants, figuring out transportation, how to actually get to those restaurants to meet up with people. It can really have a strong impact on that. And there are solutions for all these things, right? It's about figuring out how can we do these things differently. It's not that you can't do them at all. It's how can we find a different way to go through these things. Also, of course, your general home management, floors, carpets, vacuuming, keeping on top of countertops, clothes and laundry. How do you pay your bills? What are some different ways to do that, right? This is the basis for independent living skills, right? These classes that we offer that you've probably seen in our catalog is called independent living skills. These are all the different things that we go through. How can we take these tasks that may be a little bit more complicated with some of these changes in vision, and how can we make them a little bit easier, right? And one of the other things that happens is that it becomes difficult to be safe in your home, right? What happens if you have a gas stove? The potential for burning yourself or lighting something on fire. The potential for what happens if there's an earthquake. Do you have a plan set in mind for what you're going to do, where you need to be in that type of an event? Do you have a to-go bag, something already set for you to prepare for? Do you have emergency contacts? Do other people in an emergency situations know to help you, right? These are all of these things to consider, and it's almost like, I don't want to say you want to jump to the worst case scenario, but you kind of want to have a plan that covers all your bases for emergency, but also just in your daily lives, right? Getting into the routine of something. And the thing is, with all of these different daily activities, a lot of it is about routine. I mean, we're going to tell you a bunch of different little tips and tricks, and you can jump into our classes for more tips and tricks for managing these things. But ultimately, unless you're actually applying them on a regular basis, they kind of tend to fall out of memory and fall out of practice, and then you end up losing those skills. It's like learning a language, right? It's not quite the same thing as riding a bike. So it's something that you always want to be on top of, thinking about what are these solutions for these particular tasks, and how can I build these things into my personal life? And it's going to be different for everybody, right? It's not meant to be overwhelming, like you want to do all of these things at once, like you need to make all of these changes to make things easier for you. That, in effect, would actually make things harder. But bit by bit, to start incorporating these little tips and tricks that we teach you as ways to make things a little bit easier and more manageable in your day-to-day life. Okay, so at this point, what we want to do is go through some of the environments within a home, like your living room, your bathroom, a dining room, a kitchen, so on and so forth. Go through it room by room and talk about some of the challenges that can occur in that room and some of the solutions for those. Um, all right, so we are going to. I'm sorry, did I?
Oh, no, that's okay. I was just gonna take over.
Oh, yes,
Yeah,
take over.
cool. So yes, like Richard said, we'll look at a couple common areas that we talk about if you're modifying your home so that you can be safe and independent and age in place. This first one is the kitchen, and for each room, I'll talk about kind of what can you do to the environment, and then Richard will help us out with how can you modify that task if you have a visual impairment or blindness. So in the kitchen, best things you can do is increase lighting, task lighting. So I have a photo here of a kitchen, and they're using under cabinet lighting so that you can more easily see the counter. Another strategy you can use is using contrast in your environment. Like we talked about, your contrast sensitivity is diminishing as you age, and also if you have a visual impairment. So what they've done in this kitchen is they've provided a dark countertop and light cabinets so that you're able to see the difference. What they've also done is place like a shelf liner inside the cabinet, looks like a dark red shelf liner, so that you can tell where each shelf is. Now, over on the left side of their kitchen here, they actually have a little prep station set up with a cutting board and a task lamp. A gooseneck lamp is another way that you can increase that lighting specific to what task you're doing in the kitchen. And Richard, what are some other things that you can do to modify tasks in the kitchen?
Yeah, so all of it is, of course, very, very task dependent. Well, one of the big ones that occurs in the kitchen is cutting, right? Cutting vegetables. I mean, that's something that immediately jumps out as a potential safety hazard, especially if it's difficult to see what you're working with. So here in our kitchen and in our classes, we use these cutting boards that are black on one side and white on the other. That way, if we're cutting up something that's white, we can do that on the dark surface, or we can cut up something that's dark on the light surface. And then also having a lamp like Caitlin mentioned on that task. I remember we were teaching a cooking class last semester, and Caitlin jumped in and showed us how to set up that station, and it made things a million times easier. And then, of course, using things like that shelf liner that has a grip to keep the cutting board secure, right? How can you safely keep your fingers out of the way? There are different things you can do for timing, right? How do you make sure that you're not burning anything that might be on the stove, right? So cooking with low vision is often becomes more about time, right? Cooking my whole life, it was, when it looks done, it's done, right? But that's not necessarily it's not necessarily the most effective way to do it, right? So we want to be setting timers. Approximately how long does it take to do this? The people in my cooking class get very, very good at time, right? Okay, well, how long is it going to take beets to cook at 1 hour after the boil? It's always memorizing time and ratios. That way, it's really, really straightforward, and it serves as a memory exercise too. So the kitchen is a really great place. Sometimes it can be difficult to identify what's what, right? If you have a pantry in your kitchen or what's in a refrigerator on certain shelves, spilling things, how can you reach out in a slow, controlled way to make sure that you don't knock something over, making sure things are covered that are in the refrigerator. How do you know if something's gone bad, right? Being able to use your sense of smell to be able to tell if something's gone bad. Another thing that I just want to mention here, as we're getting into all these rooms, even though we talk about independent living skills and doing all these things yourself, it is very important to know and have an idea about how to do all these things yourself. But the fact is that a lot of individuals, as they get older, they do have assistance, right? Whether in an assisted living place or with family members or other people that they live with. And it is always, always, always okay to ask for help. The thing is that when you ask for help, it needs to be your decision, right? So that you're not asking for help out of need, but you're asking for help out of want, right? Because that's very empowering, right? And one of the biggest things with visual impairment that makes a difference in every single one of these environments is your level of confidence, right? I always give an example of if you're cooking something in a frying pan, right? Like maybe an egg or an omelet or something, right? And you flip it, right? You flip it over without using a spatula, with just your hand. You push the frying pan forward and pull back really fast so that the thing flips out of the pan, hops, and then lands back in the pan. If I were to go into doing that with zero confidence, it's going to go off the edge of the pan and make a big mess every single time. But if I start to flip that thing and know that it's going to work out for me, it does it. It's almost like our sometimes we set ourselves up for failure by the thoughts that we're having. So in all of these different things that we're teaching you and showing you, if you can kind of think about doing them from a place of yes, I can. I can do this. It really makes all the difference. Too often people get into that state of I'm too old, or I have this particular problem, so I can't do that. But that in essence that is a limiting belief that is limiting you and doing these things. So I just wanted to put that little note out here because it is something that applies to every single thing that we're talking about today. Anything else in the kitchen, Caitlin, or?
Yeah, you reminded me of something. So you're talking about how it's all about timing, and that is so true when you're cooking. It made me think of using your Alexa or Siri or your assistive technology to say, "Hey Siri, set a timer for 10 minutes," or just another tool that you can use to make things easier for you, so you don't have to try to remember it all or pick up your timer and punch it in. We did have a great class about using tech in the kitchen the other semester too. I hope that we'll do that again.
Yeah, excellent idea. I'm actually going to just quickly press the mute button on my Alexa because she's been having a hard time since we started this.
Sorry, Alexa.
All right, let's see where we're going next. Oh, yes, the bathroom. What happens in the bathroom, Kate? Well, what happens visually in the bathroom that can be
We all know
problematic?
what happens in the bathroom. So the bathroom is an area that we, as OTs, we talk about a lot for aging in place and as you age, and if you have a visual impairment, because the most amount of falls occur in the bathroom. So when people are looking to design their home to age in place, they're typically looking for, how do we design this if you have limited mobility, or it's impaired, or your balance is off, or if you're using some kind of assistive mobility device like a wheelchair or a walker. So I do have two photo examples on the slide here. The one on the right is showing an example of basically a walk-in or roll-in level shower. So it has no kind of lip. It has no edge or step for you to step over. It also is showing that it has a shower bench or a shower chair for you to sit on. Something else that people are usually interested in is grab bars. I've seen bathrooms where there's grab bars on every inch of the bathroom, which isn't necessary. It will depend on who you are and what works best for you, but typically you'll have a bar going horizontally so that you can walk forwards and backwards and hold on to that. You might also have a bar going up and down, and that's for you to maybe step over. If you have a tub shower, you can step over and hold on to that for balance. And then usually a diagonal bar you can use for getting up and down from a shower chair. Important note about grab bars: do not get the ones that are suction cup handles. They will not work. They will eventually fail, and that's not safe. And do not use your typical towel bar as something to hold on to, because that will also fail you. Now this picture here has like a very hospital medical looking, hideous grab bars. There are companies now that will make pretty, aesthetically pleasing grab bars so that you can fit it into your design. What else do people? So the grab bars are important if you have limited vision and mobility. You're using your hands, you're trying to feel around with your hands while you're showering and trying to get in and out. So grab bars are important for that. Another thing you can do for low vision is to make sure you have enough lighting in the bathroom, and you can have lighting installed over your shower or over your tub, a safe lighting example. You can use a lighted mirror for near tasks. And another thing you can do is to increase contrast in the environment there. So if you do have that tub shower, you can put like a high contrast tape on the edge of that tub so that you can tell how far you have to step over. It's going to help you with that depth perception. Now, Richard, there are some things in this photo. There's a rug. There's like a light colored loofah. Those are all other areas of using contrast in the environment. But what else can you do for your bathroom tasks?
Yeah. So, in the bathroom, it really is one of the hardest environments to navigate. I mean, even for me as someone who's sighted, just because it's so tight, right? And you keep a lot of things in there. I mean, personally, I have like a million hair products, that are all over the place. But what happens if I reach out and I knock something over and I can't quite find it, right? In my class, um, we always talk about using your sense of sound to listen to something when it drops and really kind of honing in on it. Because if you've heard it, the brain kind of does this thing where if you start reaching out your hand and you can replay that sound of where something dropped in your mind, you automatically kind of get drawn to it. It's like one of those parts of our brain that, we're not entirely sure why it works that way, but our brain is kind of taking all the sensory information together and creating a clear picture for how something is. So it can be a little bit tricky when you have a lot of different things to not drop them, right? So keeping them contained, right? Having cabinets are especially helpful for certain things that are not mobile. What out like that don't need to be moved or lifted or moved from one part of the bathroom to another. I like to use Velcro, and I'll stick one side on a surface and then the other side on whatever object I want to stick there, and I'll put it there. That way, if I happen to reach out too fast or whip a towel around too fast, I'm not knocking something over, right? Another thing is identifying what is what in the bathroom. If you have a lot of different things, we always talk about rubber bands specifically. So bottles of shampoo and conditioner, how do you tell them apart? Well, if you put a rubber band around one, it can help you to be able to tactily note that difference. Um, Another thing, as I'm looking at this image that you put up here, Caitlin, I'm noticing an elevated toilet seat, and this is something that I don't mean to out my sister here. My sister is blind, but she absolutely loves having an elevated toilet seat because it minimizes the distance that she has to go to sit down, right? So in a lot of the different tasks, if you're pouring something in a kitchen or if you're using the bathroom, a lot of these different things we talk about minimizing the margin of error, right? You want to minimize the amount of space where something can go wrong, where something can get knocked over, where you could accidentally fall. So you want to keep things as close as possible. And the same is true with elevating the toilet seat. Can you think of anything else in the bathroom, Caitlin? What's a loofah? What on earth is a
Oh,
loofah?
that loofah, it's like a sponge thing.
Oh.
Right. But they come in bright colors. So if you're having
Oh.
issues with contrast, you can make sure you're getting bright colored towels, a bright color loofah, um, different color washcloth than your bath towels so that you have that contrast. And a note about the toilet riser there, that is one of those portable, you can just stick it on any toilet. If you're someone who's lucky enough to be designing your house so that you can age in place, you can also just get a comfort height toilet that is taller than a regular toilet. It's about 19 inches from the floor. I think that's it for the
Really nice.
bathroom.
Sounds kingly. All right, or queenly. All right, so let's go to the living room. What do we have to think about in the living room?
To the living room. The best thing for the living room is to consider the lighting. So you're looking at overall room lighting so that you can walk around safely. And then we're also looking at task lighting so that you can do the things that you want to do. Like this girl over here with her dog is knitting, or if you're reading in the living room. So ways for you to increase that overall room lighting is with, you can use a wall sconce, you can use torchère lamps. Just two of those Target torchère lamps that you get can light up, I think 500 square feet, if you have a bright enough bulb in there. Another thing that we want to look at is, can we control the glare? So we need that increased lighting when we have low vision, but then the glare is too much. So you want to look at using blinds or shades so that you have the ability to control it and not do all on or off. So adjustable blinds, adjustable drapes. Looking at the lamps here, you want to look at lighter lampshades instead of a dark lampshade. That's going to give you more overall lighting too. This girl on the right in this picture, she's using a floor task lamp so that she can complete her knitting. And that's something that I will do an evaluation with. If you come to a low vision appointment, I'm looking at what kind of lighting is best for you. Is it a warm light? Is it a cool light? How bright does it need to be? And it all depends on what your visual impairment is and what you're trying to do. Let's see. Also, we are also looking at the contrast again. So in this photo here, they have a light colored couch. So they put a dark blue pillow on it. You can have a dark rug and then a light colored couch, making sure that you secure that rug or make sure it's a non-skid rug. And let's see, what else, Richard? What other safety things can you coordinate in the living room?
Well, I think a lot about positioning of furniture. I remember one of the things that my sister used to tell me when I was growing up, that one of the scariest things was walking into a room and not knowing where anything is, like not feeling grounded, walking out into an open room with nothing to hold on to and just having no perception of where anything is. And I can just imagine how terrifying that might be on some level. So one of the things that I like to think about is when you enter a room, having something or positioning your furniture so that you can trail around the room. So you can have a hand extended, holding on to something and move from one thing to the next, right? Without again, reducing that margin of error, reducing that spacing where something could go wrong. But at the same time, you want to also pay attention that things aren't too close. If you have a couch with a coffee table in front of it, you want to make sure that that coffee table isn't too close to the couch, but that it's somewhere that can provide you with a landmark, but that is also something that you're not going to accidentally trip over, right? And the same is true with carpets, right? Having a way to secure your carpets to the floor. So they make those little sticky, I forget what they're called. They're probably just called, I don't know, carpet fasteners or something. It's almost like a sticky, like Velcro type thing. Or even just a lot of carpets, they use that rubber matting, like that shelf liner, that grippy stuff. And that can keep your carpets down, because I mean, I can't even tell you the amount of times that I've walked onto a carpet or not been looking where I was going, and my toe slides under the carpet just a little bit, and then I trip forward, which can of course be very dangerous. Especially if you have something. I grew up with a glass coffee table, which was maybe not the smartest thing in the world. So thinking about the materials that things are made out of as well. Another thing, with all these lamps and sources of lighting in an area like a living room, you have cords, right? There are cords that can be all over the place. So using electrical tape or something, or even I know some people that will kind of have their they'll go for the cords that are the flat ones. They have the flatter cords versus the rounder ones. They'll use the flatter ones and sometimes slide them under a carpet or something to keep them down. But just being aware that those cords are definite trip hazards. All right. And let's jump onto the hallway and stairs. This is a big one.
Yes, the next big thing when we think about how do we design our home, how do we modify our home so that we can age in place, hallways and stairs come up. Stairs probably more. If you can do it, you can do a stair chairlift. Again, if you're lucky enough to be building a home or really doing some renovation, you could consider either being a single level home or putting in an elevator, which I know sounds ridiculous, but as I was doing some research doing this, came across several times that the chairlifts and elevators are expensive, but they can be less expensive than paying for assisted living or relocating altogether to a new home. So just something to note. This photo here has a staircase. They actually have railings on both sides, 2 handrails, so that you can use those for balance. Another note for if you are designing a home and you do still have stairs, you can build them so that they are at least 42 inches wide, so that you can fit 2 people together on the staircase if you need to assist someone up and down, back and forth. Also adding lighting to your stairways. So this photo has some night lights right on the edge of the stairs here that will come on at night, or they may be motion censored. Also an overhead light in your staircases. I don't know why staircases always have to be so dark. So make sure you have that overhead light installed. Other things for hallways, again, just the lighting, that fact that we had in the beginning, something as simple as adding a night light to your bathroom or to your hallway can help you avoid tripping and falling and getting hurt. Organization and clutter is also a really big thing to manage. And Richard, I'll let you talk about that for your entrance and hallways and stairs.
Yeah, clutter is a really big thing. It's very common for people to put things on stairs, and the reason is that we kind of have this thing in our brains where we absentmindedly associate stairs with shelving, right? So sometimes we'll put something on the staircase, not even thinking about it, and then come back later on and accidentally trip over it. And stairs, because you're already changing elevation, is already something that is a safety issue. So leaving something on a staircase can be especially hazardous. So you really want to be conscious of when you're putting things down and keeping that area neat and organized. Someone who's an orientation and mobility specialist, like the ones we have here at Braille, can be very good with helping you figure out techniques to get up the stairs. Using a cane within your home is certainly acceptable, and being able to check the staircase to make sure there's nothing there before you actually start the climb can be really, really helpful. My brother actually he's also blind. He has these strip lights that he puts at the very back part of the staircase. And they're kind of like those movie star lights where you're walking and they light up as you go. So that kind of creates enough of a flash as he's stepping, so that the staircase lights up then and there. And it's not so much that he sees the light, but he can see that flash, which gives him an indication that he is indeed working his way up the steps and kind of the distance of where things are, which can be really helpful. Also, contrast on steps. We actually went to a conference not that long ago where they did a presentation about the different types of colors that you can use for the front of the stairs that you step on, and then the back that you're kind of seeing as you're moving up. So there are certain tapes or shelf liners that you can place on certain parts of stairs that can also increase contrast and give you an idea of where things are depth-wise, so that you don't trip.
Right. Another thing I forgot to note is have a light switch at the top and bottom of the stairs so that you can turn the light on before you go up and before you go down. Something other hallways don't always have. Right.
That's true.
Yeah.
All in all, stairs have their ups and downs.
Ha.
All right. So as I mentioned earlier at the beginning of the workshop, emergency preparedness is really, really big, right? Safety. And a lot of the things that we've talked about relate to safety, because that is the number one issue. You always want to have a working method of communication that's reliable. So that can include your phone. Right, having we actually have a program here in California called CTAP, the California Telephones Access Program, where they will provide a free phone for you if you provide to them proof of visual impairment. They have all different types of phones for all different types of impairments or disabilities. You can program numbers into them, speed dials. They have ones that will speak things out loud to you, ones that have big glowing buttons. Some are corded, some are portable. Really, you kind of figure out the best one that works for you. Also, having a working, reliable cell phone with emergency contacts in there is also really good. Also, having lighting in your home that's portable and battery operated, right, in case you lose power. I live very remotely here in Santa Barbara, and I lose power at least once a week. So I have flashlights everywhere, right? Just to be sure that I can see where I'm going and I don't trip. So having appropriate lighting that is reliable like that is really important. And also having clear pathways, right? If you're in an environment and you do lose power, that is something to really consider, is that you want to have a clear path, because if you have a bunch of things in there that are tripping hazards and you trip in the dark, it can be a lot harder to find your way back up again. So with all of these different things, as I mentioned earlier, you want to have a plan, right? An evacuation route, whether in California it always seems to be fires or earthquakes or mudslides or who knows. But in any of those situations, having a plan, okay, this is who I need to call, this is what I have that I need to go, that I need to take with me, a to-go bag, and this is where I'm going to get to in this type of emergency, so that I can get there safely. Having that plan, especially written up if you have a caregiver, really, really important. Anything else on emergency preparedness, Caitlin? Or
No, I think that's good. Having
right?
that plan, thinking about it beforehand, is probably the most important thing.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. All right. So, Caitlin, who are some of the people that can help out as we're getting older? It's I know resources are really really crucial. So what are some of those?
Right. Well, of course, first and foremost, Braille Institute. We have a lot of resources and classes for people with vision loss or blindness, teaching you how to be independent. Those independent living skills classes, orientation and mobility, assistive technology training, all of those things can be applied to how you function independently and safely in your home as you age. There are builders that are actually certified aging in place specialists, and these can be, it's a specialty certification that you can get. Occupational therapists can have this certification, designers and builders. You can also work with someone who has a specialty certification in environmental modification, or SCEMS as they call it. This can also be an occupational therapist, or a builder.
All right.
Sorry, another
That's
note. So when you think about, aging in place, um, it's not necessarily, do I have to build a whole new home? There are lots of people that help you. So if you have a home health therapist working with you on balance, or if you have orientation mobility helping you with balance, those are all things that are applied to being safe in your home. Okay, now we can go.
All right. So this pretty much marks the end of our presentation. We'll take questions in a moment. I just wanted to give you some contact information for us. So Caitlin here can be reached at clcovert@brailleinstitute.org, and also by phone at 805-898-8316. So she will be the second point of contact, and then the first point of contact would be our intake specialist, Gina Casillo, and her number is 805-898-8305. And with her, you would schedule a low vision evaluation with Caitlin, and then she would then refer you to me, and I get to have you in my classes.
Right, great. Do you want me to share your contact info, Richard?
Nah, no, I'm kidding.
You can reach Richard at his email, rkellsworth@brailleinstitute.org, or his number is 805-898-8303. And you can always call 1-800-BRAILLE if you have questions, or go to brailleinstitute.org.
All right.
And go ahead. I think we have about 5 minutes left if there's any questions. I also have a page here of resources about aging in place, modifications for your home, falls and vision loss, kind of looking at a home safety checklist. So if that's something people are interested in, I can share that more with you. I can share this slide through email.
All right. Well, let's open it up to questions. Are there any questions out there? I know we covered a lot of information, and we did it pretty quickly. This probably could have been a 2-hour thing.
This is Dakota. Just that I would like to receive this page, Aging in
Sure.
Place Resources. Thank you.
Great.
This is Dee Dee, and I would also like to get the page with your Calvin and Caitlin and Richard's addresses and everything on it, if you can
Sure.
send that to us.
All right.
Absolutely.
Yes, this is Margaret. I also would like that information via the email.
Excellent.
Perfect. All right. We'll just send it to everybody.
Okay.
Yeah,
There weren't that many of us here, so
that'll be
make,
easy.
yeah.
I enjoyed it very much, and thank you. It was very helpful.
Thank you. Thank you for joining
Really
us.
glad. Yeah.
Yes, good information.
Thank you. Okay. And did everybody register by email?
I think I registered by calling in.
By calling
Original.
in?
Yeah.
Okay.
But
Richard, do you know if we have email addresses?
Yeah, I think
Yes.
you do. I think you do.
Yes. I think I have email addresses for everybody here, it looks like. Yeah.
Great. Just don't want to miss anybody. Great. Well, thank you everyone so much.
Okay.
Yes,
Thank
this
you.
is a
Very
good
much.
topic. Thank you.
Yeah.
They're very helpful.
Great. Great. All right.
I would say one thing. I did try to register. I guess there's one man who puts the grab bars in, and I tried 6 months ago, and they said, well, you're on a list. It's a long list, and we'll call you when you can get to it. It's been at least 6 months. I think I'll just call them back and see what's happening.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
I think that's the times we're in right now, right? There's like no contractors available.
Right.
Yeah, the plumber's not available for 3 months. It's crazy. Yeah, but yeah, call him back, remind him.
I'll try.
Hi, Richard.
Hi, Emily. I'm so glad you could jump in.
Oh yeah, I'm too bad I can't join it from the beginning. I was helping somebody else in another workshop. So hi, Kevin. There's a great information. Thank you. And yeah, you have some information. Can you share with us, Richard?
Yeah, absolutely.
Presentation. I noticed you recording the whole presentation, so
Yes.
I got that too.
Yeah. Oh, definitely.
So where do we find the recorded class?
So what I do is I send this in to someone here at Braille, and they'll go through it and edit it, and then they'll upload it to YouTube.
I see.
It usually takes about a week. I mean, 2 weeks maximum. And then it will be up on the Braille Institute YouTube channel. So you would go to YouTube, type in Braille Institute, and then you'll navigate to that particular where it says Braille Institute, and then click on that, or press enter on your keyboard if you're using a screen reader. And that will take you to the page, and there'll be a subscribe button, and then you'll get notifications for all of our uploaded videos. But this will be one of the latest ones. So ones like this, I do try to upload as often as I can. So I will make sure that if I remember, I will try and send you all an email with the link. I'll make a note to do that. But I'm very good at misplacing my desk notes. So if that happens, if you navigate to the YouTube channel, it will be there.
Good. All right. Will do.
Great. All right, everybody. I'm gonna we'll sign off.
Okay.
Thanks again.
Again.
All right. Have a great rest of your day,
Bye.
everyone.
You too.
Thank you.
Thank you. Nice meeting you, Kelly.
Thank you.
Bye.